to welcome you all today on behalf of the Boston Tea Party Chapter, National Society Daughters of the American Revolution. Thank you all for joining us for today's rededication of this monument, which was first placed by the Dean Winthrop Chapter and SDAR in 1927. It stands in commemoration of the life of Captain James Mugford, whose unwavering service and sacrifice furthered the cause of American independence. Today is the 250th anniversary of the day that Captain Mugford, commanding the continental schooner Franklin, captured the British supply ship Hope here in Broad Sound. This pivotal victory secured 1,500 barrels of essential powder and other armaments, vital to the fledgling Continental Navy's war effort. On March 19, 1776, after offloading the armaments from the Hope, the Franklin and the privateer Lady Washington were attacked by British Marines in Shirley Gut as they left Boston Harbor. The American crews successfully repelled the assault in close quarters combat, and Captain Mugford was the sole casualty of the battle. We will open with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We gather today to rededicate this monument in recognition of the sacrifice and service of Captain James Mugford. Gratitude which extends to all the men and women who have served the nation with integrity and devotion for the last 250 years. Mugford's actions in these waters and his ultimate sacrifice on this day 250 years ago shaped his individual legacy as an American patriot, a sacrifice that reminds us that liberty is often secured by the courage of the few for the benefit of the many. The capture of the Hope wasn't just a personal victory. It provided 1,500 barrels of gunpowder that sustained the entire Continental Army. And so may we too be inspired to realize that one person's courage can sustain an entire people, and that our greatest strength lies in our responsibility to one another.
Glory, hallelujah.
And the Constitution.
I invite you to join in a moment of quiet reflection. May this stone continue to stand as a testament to the roots of American democracy, the steadfast conviction, unwavering commitment to justice, and deep yearning for self-determination that sustained the men and women of our country's founding generation. May the memory of these revolutionary men and women be a living presence as we continue to rise to the challenges of our day, so that future generations might also recall the ideals that unite us and the sacrifices that brought us to this moment. In recalling these sacrifices today, let us re-accept the mantle of stewardship for this democracy and rededicate ourselves to the quiet daily work of citizenship. May we remain resolute in defense of liberty and continue to nurture the ideals of equality and community, for which American patriots sacrificed their lives and fortunes.
In God we trust.
May we, remaining steadfast in our pursuit of a more perfect union, go forth in gratitude for a magnificent heritage.
Amen.
Okay.
Ready. Aim. Fire. 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 Freeze. Wow.
thank you all for coming to this rededication event. There will be a further event beginning around 1 o'clock at the Dean Winthrop House. It's free and open to the public. I don't know how many of you might have already planned to join us, but if you hadn't planned, I would love to invite you to join us there shortly. I want to thank the American Legion Post and their color guard as well for their service today. And as we disperse, I invite you to take a moment to come visit this monument that's been here for 99 years now. And just thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, good afternoon, and thank you all for joining us today. It is my privilege to welcome you all today on behalf of the Boston Tea Party chapter to commemorate the 250th anniversary of the death of Captain James Mugford and the Battle of Shirley. For those of you that I have yet to meet, my name is Rachel Truesdale. I'm the current regent of the Boston Tea Party chapter, NSDAR, and I will be guiding you through this afternoon's program. At this time, I would like to ask Susan Giroux, Honorary Chapter Regent, if she would like to read a land acknowledgement.
As we stand here in Winthrop, we acknowledge that we live on and gather on the enduring ancestral homelands of the Massachusetts, Pawtucket, and Namkeg peoples. Our relationship to this land and these waters is strengthened by our commitment to tell the stories of this place, stories that must honor the indigenous nations and all who have interacted with this place throughout its history. Our stewardship is an active practice. We are called to move beyond mere words into action, to celebrate the people, honor the living traditions, and use our voices to protect the ongoing relationship between people and place. We further commit ourselves to the work of telling these stories, supporting conservation projects to repair and sustain the health of this land and these waters, and making decisions that care for these places to ensure they thrive for generations to come.
Thank you, Susan. It is a distinct honor to welcome the color guard representing the USS Constitution. Ladies and gentlemen, please rise as you are able for the ceremonial presentation of the colors and remain standing until the conclusion of the national anthem.
Center, face.
The Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America will be led by Mr. Michael Herbert, President of the Winthrop Improvement and Historical Association.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The American's Creed, which if you're not familiar with it, you will find on an insert in your programs, will be led by Phil Vernon, Winthrop's Veterans Services Officer.
The American's Creed. I believe in the United States of America as a government of the people, by the people, for the people, whose just powers are derived from the consent of the governed, a democracy in a republic, a sovereign nation of many sovereign states, in perfect union, one and inseparable, established upon those principles of freedom, equality, justice, and humanity, for which American patriots sacrificed their lives and fortunes. I therefore believe it is my duty to my country, to love it, to support its Constitution,
Constitution will be led by River Truesdale, a 7th grade student at the Broadmeadows Middle School in Quincy, and Cleo Truesdale, a 3rd grade student at Atherton Howe Elementary School in Quincy. They are also members of the Old North Bridge Society, Children of the American Revolution.
We the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty for ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution of the United States of America.
The national anthem will be led by Mary Vitiello. Please join us in singing the first verse.
Join in with me if you like.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose bright stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Color detail, order, arms,
The colors will now be posted.
center, face, forward, march. Right, left. Color detail, oh. Up, out, face, forward, march. Right, left, right, right, Color detail, oh.
You may be seated. Governor Maura T. Healy has issued a citation in honor of the day, which I am very pleased to share. On behalf of the residents of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, I am pleased to confer upon you this governor's citation in recognition of the 250th anniversary of Captain James Mugford and the Battle of Shirley Gut. On May 17, 1776, Captain Mugford, commanding the Continental schooner Franklin, captured the British supply ship Hope in Broad Sound. This pivotal victory secured barrels of black powder and other armaments vital to the Continental Army's war effort. On May 19th, after offloading the armaments from the Hope, the Franklin and the privateer Lady Washington were attacked by British Marines in Shirley Gut as they left Boston Harbor. The American crews successfully repelled the assault in close quarters combat. Captain Mugford was the sole American casualty. We celebrate the Boston Tea Party chapter of the National Society Daughters of the American Revolution as you commemorate this occasion. This 17th day of May in the year 2026, Maura T. Healy, Governor, Kimberly Driscoll, Lieutenant Governor. We have many distinguished guests with us today who I will now introduce. It is a privilege to be joined by Mary Tedesco, State Regent of the Massachusetts Daughters of the American Revolution. Founded in 1891, the State Society of Massachusetts encompasses 41 active chapters and a membership exceeding 2,400 individuals throughout the Commonwealth. The MDAR is dedicated to a diverse array of initiatives focused on historic preservation, veteran services, conservation, literacy, and civic education. United by a common mission, its members strive to honor our national heritage and contribute to the future through steadfast community service and the presentation of historic sites. Madam State Regent, will you bring greetings?
My pleasure, Madam Chapter Regent. On behalf of the Massachusetts Daughters of the American Revolution, 2,500 members and 41 chapters across the Commonwealth, it is a pleasure to be here in Winthrop as we commemorate the 250th anniversary of the Battle of Shirley and honor the heroism of James Mumford. The Massachusetts Daughters of the American Revolution stands together in unity as descendants of patriots to recognize this important milestone in our nation's history. As descendants of those who secured our freedom, we carry a special responsibility to honor their sacrifices, preserve their stories, and ensure that this legacy is remembered and understood for future generations. Through remembrance, education, and service, we keep their spirit alive and carry it forward for generations to come. Sometimes people ask, how does an organization founded in 1890 remain relevant today? The answer is actually very simple. Giving back to your community, preserving history, supporting education, and helping others will always matter. Those values never go out of style, and DAR continues to thrive because it provides women with shared purpose, meaningful service, historical connection, friendship, and community. And perhaps especially today, that sense of connection matters greatly as we commemorate America 250. We are reminded that history is not simply something that we study, it is something we inherit, preserve, and pass forward. Today, we honor that enduring legacy. Thank you to the Boston Tea Party chapter, Regent Rachel Truesdale, for the opportunity to participate in this meaningful commemoration as we reaffirm our commitment to preserving history for generations yet to come. On behalf of the Massachusetts Daughters of the American Revolution and our Boston area chapters, we invite you to learn more about DAR membership at dar.org/join. May the America 250 celebrations continue to inspire patriotism, service, and unity. Thank you, Madam Chapter Regent.
Thank you, Ms. Tedesco. Mr. Michael Herbert is the president of the Winthrop Improvement and Historical Association, or WIHA. WIHA is dedicated to preserving and maintaining the first period colonial Dean Winthrop House, its property and collections. Built around 1675 with an addition in 1696, the Dean Winthrop House is the oldest continually lived in wood frame home in the United States and was added to the National Register of Historic Places in 1990. As responsible stewards since 1903, WIHA is committed to the educational enrichment of its members and visitors, upholding a long-standing promise to the town of Winthrop and the general public. We are deeply indebted to Mr. Herbert and the Winthrop Improvement and Historical Association for their invaluable support in planning and hosting this event. Mr. Herbert, would you like to bring greetings?
Yes, please. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to my home and your home too. It's America's home. I'd like to especially welcome the DAR members, the Boston Tea Party Regent, Rachel Truesdale, and the State Regent, Massachusetts Daughters of the American Revolution, Mary Tedesco, State Rep Jeff Turco, and our keynote speaker, Eric Dolan, the USS Constitution Color Guard, and I want to say a special thank you to Susan Giroux. Welcome, Susan. We gather here on the grounds of the house that has stood for nearly almost 400 years, overlooking the ocean, weathering storms, wars during the Revolution, and generations of change. Built around 1637, Captain Pierce, one of the earliest navigators to Massachusetts Bay Colony. The home was part of the Winthrop family in 1647 when it was purchased by Dean Winthrop, the youngest son of Governor John Winthrop, who spent 81 years here, and his descendants continued after him. To be the oldest continually lived-in house in America, that's quite a title. Nearly 4 centuries ago, this peninsula looked entirely different. The shoreline was lined with marshes, hay that was harvested and sold to a place some of you might know, Haymarket Square. And they used that hay that they harvested here in the backyard to feed the cattle on the Boston Common, America's oldest park. There were dirt paths, open farmland, and survival depended on resilience, community, and faith of the uncertain future. This house was described as a most excellent farmhouse of its day, never to pretend to be a mansion. Few homes in America could rival the remarkable legacy that connected to it. One historian famously wrote that we may no doubt whether any other house in the country could be found whose owners across 3 centuries presented a more splendid galaxy of names. A lot of notable people lived here in the house. Yet somehow, through all the centuries that followed, this house endured. It stood through the earliest colonial settlement of New England. It witnessed the American Revolution, the Battle of Shirley. Right here, it could be seen. It overlooked these waters during the War of 1812. It survived industrial, economic hardship, hurricanes, and the transformation of the modern world. And still, these beams remain, helping keep the house right. What makes the Dean Winthrop House extraordinary is this is simply not an old building preserved with glass. It's an authentic living history, the worn floors that feet have walked on for generations. People who could never imagine the modern world that we live in today. Within the walls, families celebrated births, mournings, discussed politics, shared meals. Judge Samuel Sewell, one of the most important chroniclers of the colonial New England, visited the home and documented gatherings here with the Winthrop family. He kept a great diary, and so that gave a lot of information to the historians. What makes this place so special is the Dean Winthrop House is not just old, it's alive. It's a memory. Every beam, every floorboard, every fireplace carries the presence of people who once stood there. When you preserve a place like this, we preserve more than the architecture. We preserve human stories. We preserve sacrifice, ambition, courage, the reminder that history is not as distant as sometimes we think. When you stand inside, suddenly you become personal. It becomes personal to you. You realize the people who lived here for centuries ago are not so different from us. They had hopes for their family, fears about the future, and dreamed about a better life. Perhaps this is why preserving a place like this matters so deeply. On May 4th, 1908, the Winthrop Improvement and Historical Association registered with the state. The Dean Winthrop House is preserved and protected by the Hood Association for the legacy for future generations. All right. The name of the Dean Winthrop House got its name because it's the first real family that stayed there. Captain Pierce, who built the house, was out at sea. Dean Winthrop raised his family, 11 children. He outlived all his children. And it got passed down to family. Now I want to get into the history of who built the house. Captain William Pierce. He was far more than a shipmaster. He was one of the great early figures of Massachusetts Bay Colony. He was a mariner, a military leader, a merchant, and a trusted advisor to Governor John Winthrop. He commanded many ships across the Atlantic at a time when ocean voyages were dangerous, uncertain, helping supply and sustain the struggling colony in its earliest years. He played an important role in the survival and growth of early New England. In many ways, Captain Pierce represents the courage, endurance, and determination that defines the first generations of settlers who helped shape the foundation of Massachusetts and ultimately America. Captain Pierce is one of the most esteemed and accomplished navigators of his era. Born in England in 1590, he sealed the waters of New England even before the Pilgrims arrived. In 1622, the colonists desperately needed supplies, and Captain Pierce, William Pierce, brought the supplies over on the Paragon. He made numerous crossings across the Atlantic, carrying leather shoes, cattle, and goods needed for the New World. On the return, he would bring furs, beaver, and clapboards back to England. He was the captain on many ships, and some of those ships are the Lion, the Little James, the Mayflower, the Anne, and the Paragon. He possessed an extraordinary knowledge of the sea, including the safest and most direct routes and the best fishing grounds in New England. And most importantly, the trading ports throughout New England and the American world. Captain Pierce was widely remembered for creating New England's earliest almanac in 1639, used throughout the colonists themselves, because the almanac contained the tide charts that was used, that he calculated over the years sailing here. The almanac documented weather, wildlife, fish population, fish conditions of the colonies, navigational charts, valuable information for both sailors and settlers. Its cover famously displayed 7 full moons on each side and 16 half moons on top and bottom. The most important mariner, but most importantly the mariner, it recorded the depths of the richest fishing grounds, noting that only 6 fathom deeps in the New England water here, and it was 50 fathoms in water off Newfoundland. So the fishing was very easy to catch here. You didn't have to go pull the fishing line up so far. And a fathom is this length here, from fingertip to fingertip is your fathom. Captain Pierce and his older brother were connected to the merchant adventurers, the English investment group that helped finance the settlement into the New World. These ventures hoped to establish colonies, develop trade, and profit from fishing, land ownership, and commerce. At the time, fishing industry was considered like gold. The Atlantic crossings themselves were extraordinarily dangerous. During one voyage on the Paragon, his ship endured violent storms lasting for 14 days, 3 of them which were very treacherous. The ship became so beat up, its rowboat got tossed over the sea, its mast broke, and the upper woodwork along the decking was all ripped off it. The passengers, the sea was so violent that the passengers reported that they couldn't tell if they were still on the boat or out at sea. They returned halfway across the Atlantic back to England. Another voyage of the Lion, the Captain Pierce carried 60 passengers and 60 tons of supplies. How much is a ton? Well, it was it was 4 hogs that would fit in a cask. And that's how they measured the whole of a ship, by the tonnage. During one expedition, the vessel Little James he brought over was intended to stay here for the Plymouth fishing operation. However, tensions grew amongst the crew, who became unhappy with the condition and threatened disobedience. Fearing the crew would seize the ship and flee, Captain Pierce, with his skills, managed through patience and perseverance to peacefully resolve the conflict and restore order. On the return voyage, he was rewarded back in England for his good deed. Captain Pierce was also a close friend of Governor John Winthrop. At one point, Governor Winthrop asked Captain Pierce to bring his wife and child back to New England. In 1636, the Great Allotment of Winthrop, what is now Winthrop, happened, where 12 lots of land were awarded to individuals to enlarge the city of Boston. They had to establish a house within 1 year, and Captain Pierce was given one of the best locations. He had this house all the way to the beach, all the way down to Shirley Gut. He would hop in his sailboat and go to his vessel just off the shore. His life remained tied to the sea until the very end. Captain Pierce, in 1646, Captain Pierce sailed to the West Indies, carrying Puritan settlers hoping to establish themselves in the warmer climate. Near what is now the Bahamas, while standing on the back of his little rowboat, being rowed into the Bahamas there, Captain Pierce was killed by a Spanish rifle. The passengers returned back to the vessel, but the life of one colony, New England's greatest navigator, came to a tragic end. Yet his legacy never disappears. Captain William Pierce spent his life crossing the ocean, documenting the world around him, supplying struggling colonies, guiding settlers, expanding trade, helping lay the foundation of early America itself. His story reminds us that places like the Dean Winthrop House were not built by ordinary lives, but by extraordinary individuals whose courage and perseverance shaped the course of history. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Herbert. We're also honored to be joined by Robert J. Allison, Professor of History at Suffolk University. As chair of Revolution 250, a consortium of organizations planning revolutionary commemorations in Massachusetts, he hosts a weekly podcast featuring conversations on the Revolution with historians and interpreters. He received his PhD in the history of American civilization at Harvard, the first doctoral program dedicated to American studies. He is president of the Colonial Society of Massachusetts, a scholarly organization focused on early American history, and a life trustee of the USS Constitution Museum. Professor Allison, would you like to share your thoughts on this special occasion?
And in the wreck of noble lives, something immortal still lives. We sense this with Captain Mugford, whose life ended 250 years ago today, near where we are standing. His life ends as a navy is being born and a nation is being born because of his sacrifice. And the name Mugford, of course, lives on. I mean, that day, think about it, 13 British tenders were attacking his cruiser, the Franklin, along with the Lady Washington. 13 British vessels. Mugford was the only American casualty, but of those 13 vessels attacking, 5 were sent to the bottom. 70 British sailors lost their lives that day, here where we are standing right now. And Mugford's dying words to his lieutenant, "I am a dead man, but don't give up the vessel. You can beat them. And if you can't, then cut the line and get ashore," which is what they did. So Captain Mugford's men continued to fight, brought the vessel ashore, and created here a legacy which endures, thanks to the town of Winthrop and those who gathered here today to remember his sacrifice. His sacrifice is remembered here, as well as in the town of Marblehead, where he is buried, and the Marblehead town historian joins us today. And it's also remembered by the United States Navy, which is 2 vessels commissioned as the Mugford. The first served in the First World War, and the second, a destroyer, was at Pearl Harbor on December 7th of 1941. And it took down 3 Japanese aircraft before the day was over. And over the next 4 years of war, the Mugford would earn 7 battle stars, living up to the legacy James Mugford began here in May of 1776, saying, "Don't give up the vessel, you can beat them." And we think about that enduring spirit which our men and women in the Navy and the other armed services still display every day. And we thank them for their service here as we gather before Memorial Day, the day after Armed Services Day, to think about the great sacrifice made by the men and women who wear the uniform of the United States. And thinking about that poem, whose little epigraph I began with, written in about 1861 as the nation was about to embark on another war, thinking then this poem, of course, is "The Building of a Ship," concludes, sail on, O ship of state. Sail on, O Union, strong and great, humanity with all its fears, with all its hopes of future years, is hanging breathless on thy fate. In spite of rock and tempest's roar, in spite of false lights on the shore, sail on, nor fear to breast the sea. Our hearts, our hopes are all with thee. Our hearts, our hopes, our prayers, our tears, our faith triumphant o'er our fears, are all with thee, are all with thee. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Allison. Commander Schaefer doesn't seem to have been able to join us today. We're hoping that everything is going well. But I would like to introduce Representative Jeffrey R. Turco, first elected to the state legislature in March of 2021. Representative Turco serves the people of the 19th Suffolk District, comprising all of the town of Winthrop and a large part of the city of Revere. By profession, he is an attorney with his own private law practice in the city of Chelsea. Representative Turco.
I was telling the professor my undergrad degree was in American history at the University of Massachusetts, so I'm a wannabe historian, so forgive me. They didn't give me a time limit, but I'll make sure I take the cue. So it really is an honor to be here, and other than speaking to veterans groups, speaking about American history is the thing I enjoy most. And why is that? You look at where we are here in Massachusetts, 250 years ago. Last year I was with the governor up in Lexington and Concord, and you think that 4,000 British regulars, the greatest army the world had known at the time, confronted by who? Blacksmiths and horsemen and Native Americans coming up from Connecticut to help. And they defeated the greatest army the world has ever known. And they did it because of a belief in a land that ultimately would become America. I mean, it's just an amazing story. And so I want to share with you just a couple of thoughts. We're going to hear a lot about Captain Mugford, but I also want to talk about Dr. Joseph Warren, the president of the Massachusetts Bay Colony. And forgive me, I get emotional about this because 34 years old, Dr. Joseph Warren stood up and he said, that he was worried about America. He was worried about this land of Massachusetts in the United States and said, where are we going to be? He said, upon you rests the future of the land. Act worthy of yourselves. When you read the creed that Phil Ronan read to us earlier, and you talk about that, you say, we have a duty to act worthy of ourselves. I want to go back to Virginia. Our founding fathers, they sat down and they wrote, they ended the Declaration of Independence, and they said, we mutually pledge our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. So a lot of people, those are just words on paper. But to those people that signed the Declaration of Independence, and those people that signed the Constitution, they put everything at risk. They lost everything for a lot of these people. And so there's a guy named Thomas Nelson. Thomas Nelson was in Virginia. And Nelson stood on the House of Burgesses and said, I'm a merchant of Yorktown, but I'm a Virginian first. Let my trade perish, for I call God to witness that if any British troops are landed in the county of York, I shall await no orders. I will drive the enemy into the sea. 20 years later, Thomas Nelson is the governor of Virginia. They're fighting the British. He turns to his troops and says, why are you not firing in that area? They said, out of respect to you, sir. See, the British had taken over Nelson's mansion. And they said they didn't want to shoot and destroy Nelson's mansion. He ordered his cannons turned and destroyed his own house. He left himself penniless, paying off the debts from the destroyed house because he wanted to live out the truth and the promise that he made on the floor of the House of Burgess. The same thing can be said about Captain Mugford. The same thing can be said about Joseph Warren. The same thing can be said about so many other people. It's our duty now, at a time when a lot of people don't believe in this experiment called democracy, and they don't believe in this experiment called America. It's up to you to stand up and be heard. Let people know that this great experiment, there's a reason that millions of people try to come here every year. Why? Because it's a land of hope. It's a land of opportunity. I'm going to share one more quick story, a personal story, and then I'll conclude. I'm with my daughter in Paris a couple of years ago. She's 18 now. She was 15. And we're leaving the hotel going back to the airport. And I said to the driver, where are you from for the Uber? He said, I'm from Beirut. I said, why are you in France? He said, well, the Civil War in Lebanon, we were a colony, and so we came here to France because we had the right to do that. And he said, but I have to tell you, I've been on the visa lottery list for the United States of America for 20 years. So I hit my daughter. I said, listen to this. He said, why do you want to come to the United States? He said, France has been wonderful to me and my family, but we're here in society, and we can never move up. The only place in the world, the beacon of hope for everybody, is the United States of America, where you come here, you work hard, you sacrifice, you serve, and you can advance your life. You can create a better world for tomorrow for you and for your families. That's what these people, 4,000 British regulars, beaten by blacksmiths, and these amazing people at Lexington and Concord, by Captain Mugford, and by so many other people here at Pullman Point. There's so much more history to be learned here. I urge you, go out and preach the message that is America. 250 years, we're going to survive another 250 years. If you go out and you challenge people to make this country and make our promise of a better world for our children and our grandchildren stay alive today. God bless each one of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Turco. Mr. Phil Ronan, a proud Army veteran, has served as the Town of Winthrop Veterans Services Officer since 2022. A lifelong resident of Winthrop, Mr. Ronan graduated from Winthrop High School in 1976 and served in the United States Army, where he worked as a helicopter mechanic and spent 18 months stationed in South Korea with the 2nd Infantry Division. Following his military service and a 25-year career with the United States Postal Service, Mr. Ronan has returned to public service to advocate for his fellow service members. He is deeply committed to ensuring that the diverse needs of the town's 180 veterans are met with the same dedication as he has applied to all of his previous endeavors. Our chapter is deeply appreciative of the invaluable support and expertise that Mr. Ronan has provided to help us commemorate the legacy of Captain Winthrop today. Mr. Ronan, would you like to come up and speak?
First, I'd like to thank the Boston Tea Party for the invite today. It's really appreciated and it's an honor. On behalf of the town of Winthrop, on behalf of all my fellow veterans, we want to thank you folks for remembering, for preserving history, like the representative said. It's so critical. There were so many people that sacrificed, starting with people like Captain Mugford and many other common people that allow us to live the freedom and enjoy our way of life that we have today. So once again, I really want to thank you for preserving history, for your due diligence, for your hard work, because a nation that forgets its past is soon forgotten itself. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ronan. The Boston Tea Party chapter deeply appreciates the historic preservation mission of the Winthrop Improvement and Historical Association. This event today reflects our shared dedication to promoting historic preservation, education, and patriotism, core missions of the DAR. In 1905, the Dean Winthrop chapter of the DAR raised $750 for WEHA toward the purchase and preservation of the Dean Winthrop House, or roughly $28,226. By 1906, the fledgling chapter had 22 members, and through the 1910s and 20s, the ladies were kept quite busy, contributing funds to the upkeep of the banquet hall and a room at Memorial Continental Hall in 1912, having a float in the 4th of July parade in 1914, donating a history book to the DAR library in 1919, and in 1929 assisting the State Society of 1812 in placing a tablet at the grave of Bill Tewksbury in the Winthrop Cemetery, the ancestor of Miss Maud Tewksbury of Winthrop, who joined the Paul Revere chapter in 1918. When the Boston Tea Party chapter met here at the barn in September last year, our past regent, Alyssa True, discovered something surprising. Though the mat and frame of the photograph were in poor condition, Alyssa, a 19-year Congress page, quickly recognized the columns from the facade of our House Beautiful in the background. Then she did what we all do when we're curious about the occupants of a photograph. She turned it over and looked at the back. Lo and behold, she had rediscovered a framed photograph of the Massachusetts delegation to Continental Congress dated 1916. Would Mr. Herbert, President of the Winthrop Improvement and Historical Association, please come forward? It is my pleasure as Chapter Regent to re-present to you the preserved framed photograph for WEHA's collection, celebrating the long-standing legacy of the DAR for historic preservation, patriotism, and community service. Each year, the members of the Boston Tea Party chapter vote to award funds in support of a vital historic preservation project, ensuring that the stories of our ancestors and the places they inhabited continue to be told for future generations. This year, we are particularly proud to support the Winthrop Improvement and Historical Association's ongoing stewardship of the Dean Winthrop House and its historical legacy in this community. It is my pleasure to also present today on behalf of our chapter and in the spirit of the Daughters of the Dean Winthrop chapter, this year's grant in support of the preservation mission of the Winthrop Improvement and Historical Association. Thank you. I'm now going to invite Karen True, Winthrop resident and our chapter historian, to deliver a few closing remarks. Hi.
the heroic death during the Battle of Shirley on May 19, 1776, Captain James Mumford was returned to his hometown of Marblehead, for those of you. And he resided with his wife, Sarah Grist, for burial. On May 22nd, he was interred there in the old burying ground. The solemn occasion was marked by a grand funeral procession from the church to the graveyard, led by Colonel John Glover and a detachment of the 14th Continental Regiment. In the final tribute to his valor and sacrifice for the cause of independence, the regiment fired a salute in honor of the fallen hero. The New England Chronicle printed a eulogy of Captain Mumford that reads, in part, "He made as brave and vigorous a stand in the defense of American liberty as now any among the living can boast of." Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. And thank you all for joining us in our celebration of the 250th anniversary of James Mumford and the Battle of Shirley Gut. There will be refreshments served, and there's tables on the lawn, and we hope you take this opportunity to enjoy the house and gardens. We are fortunate that the Dean Winthrop House will be available to be toured until 4 p.m. today. Opportunities on a number of very special items will be available for purchase until 3:45. The first of these is a framed patriotic counted cross stitch meticulously handcrafted by our talented chapter member, Mary Ann Tisdale. The second is a signed copy of Rebels at Sea. There is also an America 250 themed basket donated by past chapter regent Peggy O'Connor, and a drawing for the lovely geranium centerpieces, which you can enter. The drawing for these will be promptly at 3:45. You need not be present, but if you must leave earlier, please ensure your name and a phone number are clearly written on each ticket so we can contact you. Earlier today, members of the Boston Tea Party chapter and the community rededicated the historic marker to the memory of James Mumford located at Beacon Circle, which was originally placed by the Dean Winthrop chapter in 1927. To close this afternoon's program, I would like to read again the invocation rededicating the monument, after which I will ask for the colors to be let out. Please stand if you are able and join in a moment of quiet reflection. May the memory of Captain James Mumford's service and sacrifice continue to stand as a testament to the roots of American democracy, the steadfast conviction, unwavering commitment to justice, and deep yearning for self-determination that sustained the men and women of our country's founding generation. May the memory of these revolutionary men and women be a living presence as we continue to rise to the challenges of our day, so that future generations might also recall the ideals that unite us and the sacrifices that bring us to this moment. In recalling these sacrifices today, let us re-accept the mantle of stewardship for this democracy and rededicate ourselves to the quiet daily work of citizenship. May we remain resolute in defense of liberty and continue to nurture the ideals of equality and community for which American patriots sacrificed their lives and fortunes. May we, remaining steadfast in our pursuit of a more perfect union, go forth in gratitude for our magnificent heritage. We are again deeply honored to have the honor guard of the USS Constitution with us today to perform the final ceremonial duty of retiring the colors. After the colors are retired, please feel free to proceed to the lawn. Thank you.
Color detail, retire the colors. Up, out, face. Forward, march. Left, 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 right, 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 left, 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 right, right, left, 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 right, right, left. Color detail, up.
Thank you very much.